Hello, everybody. Welcome to E2KGn30, episode number 34. This is the our enough to keep going news in 30 minutes. We go out there and we pick the most interesting news stories to us that we found out there this past week. Tonight, I am joined by Mr. Gascles Stamos. Gascles, how's it going?
It's a little busy, First week back with both gaming podcasts and Jessica Jones this week. A few technical problems, a few hardware upgrades have also been going on this week, and I got one system defect that I also have to contend with and do something about that from a hardware perspective. So I've gotten a little bit of gaming. I've gotten more gaming in since the Enough to Keep Going core show Tuesday night. I've been getting a lot of racing time in, so that's been pretty cool.
Nice. Well, that's very poignant because we have, I believe, some racing news stories here tonight. And this is Thursday, by the way, March 15th, that we're coming at you. We're not coming at you Friday like we did last week. We're actually coming up on time. But let's start with that first news story, which actually is not the racing story, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But so we got some Twitch news here.
Yeah, and publisher over at Geeks Worldwide, our parent network, GWW Radio, and I kicked this around earlier this week, but found this over on PC Gamer. Twitch Prime now offers free games to subscribers. So if you haven't followed this whole thing, Twitch last year, I think, or maybe 2 years ago, was purchased by Amazon, which really kind of changed the rules of the game. There's a couple stories that we're actually not talking about tonight, at least they're not in the rundown, that is heating up the competitive space of games as a service and games associated services, and this whole miasma of everybody having to propagate new platforms and new services. One of the things I had looked forward to is with Twitch joining up with Amazon is the extra oomph that Amazon could add to the Twitch service layer. I personally thought, having streamed on the platform prior to the purchase, that Twitch was a little janky and buggy, and there were things that they hadn't addressed. I was looking forward to them being backed up by Amazon Web Services and kind of the robust business nature of Amazon. And now we're starting to see some of that pay off. Now, up until now, first of all, if you have an Amazon Prime account and you stream on Twitch and you don't have those accounts connected, my question to you is, what are you doing with your life? It's simply go into your Twitch account, connect it to your Prime account, and you're done. And you should be getting rewards and badges, access to periodic bonuses, additional DLC for the games that you play and stream and own. And there's a way through an affiliate program to then offer games for sale at a discount to people who view your stream and follow you as a streamer. It's a great kind of little side hustle. But in addition to that, now you are getting free games if you are a Twitch streamer. So starting today, actually, you as a Twitch streamer, when you have your Amazon Prime account linked, actually get access to Superhot and Oxenfree, as well as Shadow Tactics, which is a great game. It was one of my favorite games of 2017, and one of the really great games that released very early in the year. Unfortunately, not necessarily unfortunately, it was on PC and it didn't get a ton of buzz and people slept on it. But I think it's definitely one of those games that will play well in rotation in Steam sales. And then on April 1st, April Fool's Day, you get other stuff, including Steam World Dig 2. And that's really the only title in that bundle that I really know about. So it's all part of Amazon Prime / Twitch Prime, which now is $99 per year. So the price has been creeping upwards. But you get tons of stuff. You get Amazon Music. You get free 2-day shipping. You often get free 1-day shipping. You get Amazon Prime Video. And now you get free games on Twitch. My personal problem with this is, and what Joe Barhoom, like I said, president and owner of Geeks Worldwide, and I've been kicking around, is there's just too much stuff. Like, there's more and more platforms, and there's more and more free stuff, and I gave up this week. I tweeted out, industry, you've officially broken me. Like, I can't. My backlog is already unmanageable. I can't onboard another service that's giving me free stuff. So I have a Twitch account. I stream on Twitch a little bit. I'm definitely an Amazon Prime customer. I'm not going to be partaking. I can't see me partaking of these free games unless, by some stretch of the imagination, some AAA game winds up in that mix and it's free and it's something that I missed. Right? I don't know, man. What about you?
Come on, you don't know what Dub Wars is? Come on, man. That's one of the other, I guess, that coming in April, after April. It's one of the games. Yeah, I mean, and this is just PC games, right? I'm assuming there won't be console games that you know of.
Today, I don't know why it couldn't be, right? Because people stream their consoles to Twitch, and Amazon offers codes for those games, right? I mean, you could buy Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Switch last year as a code.
It's true. Yeah, I know some of the DLC and some of the rewards sometimes are console. I wouldn't say specific, but you can get them on consoles too.
Right. Well, and in fact, my first purchase of Legend of Zelda was a digital download. I bought that from Amazon, and it didn't work, and I swapped it out and exchanged it, and they gave me the money back and let me apply it towards a physical copy and shipped it out to me launch weekend and had it to me by Sunday, so I had time to play it before I had to go back to work. So yeah, I mean, there's really no limitation. I hate to say it, but kind of in this day and age, there's really no limitation to what Amazon can do. Right? Yeah. Except they frequently can't get things to you on time or when they say they will, but that's a story for a different day.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in the past. But I know some of the rewards they had for Fortnite was you had to actually go to Epic's site and then you could choose like, hey, I want PC or PS4 or whatever. So I mean, I guess they could do it that way too with the games, I suppose. So at some point, but yeah, I mean, it's good that they're giving away free games, and I probably won't be like picking up everything like I do on Xbox usually. But if something strikes my fancy, I'll probably jump on it and see how it is. But
well, let me ask you, because this is probably going to wind up needing to be a topic on the core show. But do you? Yeah. So there was a time period where, and we've all, as I've been writing this week and as we've been talking this week, I've been starting to write about your guys' whole thing of how you hyper focus on a particular title. And how I don't do that, and it often makes me feel bad. And I'm trying to change some things to get closer to what you guys are doing. Another cultural difference between us is you guys. So I've never been one who's just downloaded everything that was on PlayStation Plus or Xbox games with gold. I've always tried to only download the things that I was actually that I knew that I was gonna play. More and more so, I've gotten around to actually checking those things on Metacritic, and if it's not the core games that come in for me on those services are the games that are rated 70 to 80 on Metacritic. Those are the games that I typically don't buy, but I'm interested in them. Sometimes if I see them on sale or if I'm short on choices for games on a particular platform, or they're right in my bailiwick, like racing games. Some racing games I'll dip down into that strata. But are you in that mode still of where you download everything and then you kind of warehouse it like in your account, and then you're like, on a rainy day maybe I'll go play that? Yeah,
I still do it. I just I start the initial hey, I want this game, and then just cancel the download when it's starting to download. And yeah, there is times where I am gonna get sick of playing PUBG and Rocket League, and I just want, not for a long time. I'll put it away for like a week or two, and I'll start scrolling through, my million games, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll pick this one, and stuff like that. And that's actually one of the other reasons that it's kind of nice that we're doing on the core show. We're doing the, let's play, or, have, X hosts play this game, because I want to kind of get back to some of those games a little bit instead of doing it the way, like UNDB, where you have like this giant spreadsheet with all the games, and, you're taking off like, hey, I'm going to play these 3 or these 4, but I didn't want to really do that anymore, or try to do that. So that kind of gives me a reason to do that too. So there's that. So we'll see how that service goes, and how it, if it'll evolve, and we'll see. Yeah. All right. Yeah, we definitely do have to talk about this on the core show at one point. So just the gluttony of games coming out now. So. But all right, let's jump to the. Actually, I have a few news stories here, just because there's some releases and some DLC stuff that was announced, and games and stuff, and delays. So I'm just gonna go through these real quick, and then if you have any comments at the end, go ahead and feel free to comment on them. But first up, Days Gone has been delayed to 2019. Now, this is a Sony exclusive from the Siphon Filter developer Sony Bend. I don't know if that's what they're always called. I don't know if they started that name later, but and this is a post-apocalyptic open world. I guess you're like you play this bounty hunter, which this is coming from an IGN article where they they say the improbable name of Deacon St. John, so that's the main character. But yeah, you're a bounty hunter in this post-apocalyptic world. It looks like there's zombie type monsters or things that are called freakers. So, but yeah, they announced on their official site that they're just delaying it to 2019. They didn't say when, explicitly. So I don't know if that was something new had. I have heard of it, but I don't think I ever saw any gameplay or trailers or anything. So I don't know if that was on your radar. I guess, please.
Yeah, it is. It had a really strong trailer at E3 last year. I think what's interesting from my perspective on this, and again, we hashed this a little bit on Twitter earlier in the week, is it's a shame that Sony kind of couldn't find the popular speculation right now is that they moved it so that it wouldn't interfere with The Last of Us 2. So part of me says it's a little bit of a shame that Sony couldn't manage to find space in its release calendar for 2 games in the same subgenre to thrive right throughout the whole year. And maybe one of those schedules slipped left or right or the other. The other thing that surprised me is Days Gone had a trailer, a pretty robust, refined trailer at E3 last year. Last of Us 2 didn't, so it made me think that Days Gone was ahead of Last of Us 2 in the pipeline. It makes it a little interesting in terms of politics because in a quick metaphor, in Formula One, there's always this big thing about, will a team, your team orders are supposed to be illegal. So there's 2 drivers per team. Team orders are supposed to be illegal, meaning if your less popular, less paid junior driver is leading the race, teams are not supposed to tell that guy to slow down to let, Michael Schumacher, right, or the more popular driver who's ahead in the points in the championship get ahead. It makes me wonder, though, was Sony Bend given direction to say, hey, you guys are ahead in the dev pipeline, but you need to take 5, go grab a smoke, come back, because we need Naughty Dog. We're prioritizing Naughty Dog's game in release, right? Because that's a crappy thing to do to employees, right? If they're pumped up, they're trying to do well, to be told, this is kind of the way that some of those Call of Duty studios used to feel when it was all about Infinity Ward, right? So it's just curious, but it also asks the question: are there just too many zombie games? And should Sony have been more proactive at the executive management level and before they greenlit 2 of these things being worked on in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously they're not technically zombies, I guess, in Last of Us, but some other kind of creature thing.
Yeah,
used to be human, but now they're not. So
that's a load of poo. They're zombies, right?
Well, they're zombies, yeah, but they're not. Now, was Days Gone? Was that first person or third person perspective?
I thought it was third, but okay. I think it was third.
I think third, right?
What's that? Yes, I think this whole thing, even with Last of Us and definitely with Days Gone, I think we lumped this into some conversation in E3 too about everybody's coming out with third-person view, open world-ish type games, and that's everything that's on Ubisoft's slate. And I think we talked about that it was similar for Sony's first-party content.
Yeah, and of course they didn't give a reason. At least in the article, they said they didn't give a reason. So I don't know if there'll ever be a reason for this, but who knows? But I guess it's not totally bad that they got delayed, so they can always polish it up the game if they have to. All right, so let me jump to the next one. We have an announcement from Square Enix, and they have announced for September 14th of this year, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the 3rd installment of the rebooted Tomb Raider series. So it's coming to everything except for the Switch, so PC, Xbox One, and PS4, which include obviously the Pro and the Xbox One X. So cool. I mean, I played the first one of the reboot series, went through and finished it, and it was a great game. I loved it. ending was okay, like the final boss battle, if you want to even call it that. But I don't want to spoil anything. I didn't get to play Rise of the Tomb Raider, which was what, probably 2 years ago, I would believe, maybe three. And I can't remember if DB played that. I know he played the first one too, and I think he finished that one. But so I'm not sure if it was how well. I mean, it's pretty well received as far as critics, and I think the fans were pretty much liked it. So we'll see what happens with this one. Looks like it's probably like Mexico, South America, somewhere in there. They had a quick teaser trailer. That he's just kind of running around a jungle, these guys with guns, and at the end she kind of stands up and there's the temple, and it looks like kind of a South American temple.
So I haven't followed it, and I'll do a quick fact check while you're continuing your rundown. Is the Tomb Raider, is the Vikander Tomb Raider movie out now?
I believe it's this week, if not next week, because I know they had a review already on a couple of sites that I saw, so it's pretty soon.
Oh, I think it's out. Yeah, you're right. It releases tomorrow. Okay, so I just wanted to ask. So is this being released to sync up with the movie?
No, yeah, not the case. A few months. So I know it hasn't really gotten like the best reviews, so maybe that's why they did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it hasn't been like total terrible, but people are like, it's mediocre. It's a good action movie, but that's about it. So
people shouldn't have slept on. People shouldn't have given Angelina Jolie so much flack. Now they want her back.
That's right. But yeah, so this is coming out September 12th, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, there's a short teaser trailer, so we'll see what happens with that one. I'm sure we'll get more. It looks like there'll be a full reveal on April 27th, so probably a full trailer and all that, which is kind of surprising that they're going to have all that before E3, but I guess maybe that's the in thing now to get everything out there. We'll see. All right, so next up is some DLC announcement for Agassicles' favorite game, Monster Hunter World. So they're having another Capcom. Actually, no, Monster Hunter World is Capcom, right? Or is that Konami? Capcom.
No, yeah, it's Capcom.
I don't know why I always think that's from Konami. Maybe it was like published or something through Konami at one point. But yeah, they're crossing over with Devil May Cry, so you'll be able to get some weapons and some armor and taunts and stuff like that in the game with an upcoming event. They didn't specifically say when that's going to happen, but basically when you start getting these items, you actually turn into Dante within Monster Hunter World. And I guess they did this with Horizon Zero Dawn, which I don't remember seeing that, but they mentioned that in the article, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it looks like we lost Prime. Hopefully he will be back. Yep, he's coming right back in. This has happened a couple times. I think either I or one other co-host has been talking when it's happened, so I haven't even noticed it before it's been seamless. But unfortunately, it caught you mid-sentence.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. I think we are good. I think we are good as long as I stay in. If I drop, that's when we have to start the whole gig over.
That's bad. Yeah,
not start over, but do a part 2.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess there's some issues with the Hangouts and YouTube and stuff lately. So, yeah. And of course, it isn't in a podcast unless we have some issues. But as I was saying, I don't know if I got this part, but when you start getting these pieces of equipment and weapons, you actually turn into Dante, either female or male form. So that's pretty cool. And people are speculating because of this and because of Devil May Cry HD collection that had. Actually, I think it's releasing today, or actually when this article came out, which was the 13th, just a couple days ago, Tuesday. They're thinking maybe a new announcement of a new Devil May Cry might come out so soon. I don't think I ever played any of the Devil May Cries. Maybe like a demo, but it seemed fine.
I played one enough to convince me that I didn't need to play it, and it was better for me to wait for Bayonetta.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, play Bayonetta.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Souls game for 3D super amp action. It has some frustrating parts that will, for gamers of a limited tolerance, it will break you, and you'll be like, "Screw this! I have better things to go do," which is what I felt.
Yeah, so that's cool. No, that's pretty cool. They're doing cross promotion like that. So.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely being telegraphed that there's a new Devil May Cry on the way, unquestionably.
Yeah, there's so much coming out now. So, and once again, I don't know if this got through, but there's no release date for this. And I guess it's like an event that happens. I guess they throw events out there that Like they had the Horizon one, and now this one. I don't know if those are free. I'm assuming they're free. So it didn't say in the article if they're free or not. So
yeah, I'm not positive. I didn't play it on Zero Dawn.
yeah, so we'll see. Okay, and finally, last bit of news here is for Soul Calibur 6. So they announced another character here, and let me get down here. My browser's freaking out. So they've announced this is the 9th character they're going to announce, but the other 7, or excuse me, the other 8 are Ivy, Zazalamel, I guess that's how you say it, Mitsurugi, Sophia, Killick, Nightmare, Zinhao or Zinhu, I don't know, Zing maybe, and then some other guy named GR. I don't know if that's an O or a 0 because it has a strike through the which look like an O, H, so Grow or Gra. And now they have announced Mr. Geralt or Geralt, however you want to call him, from the Witcher series. He's going to be in it now. So they have a reveal trailer, which is pretty cool. He actually uses magic too when he's throwing out his combo. So I don't know if that's just like within a combo or if you can just do that like anytime. Which Soul Calibur is really not known for like fireballs or anything like that. It's mostly hand-to-hand combat. So we'll see. That's pretty cool actually. It looks pretty interesting. Might be on my radar maybe.
Yeah, and it's mostly weapon based.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the big weapon based game. But I'm trying to remember. There's typically not ranged attacks.
Yeah, I didn't think there was.
There are long distance strikes with weapons, and I'm sure somewhere in there's been a character who could throw her sai or somebody who could throw a throwing star or something like that. I have not played the entire series. I played a lot of the first few Inceptions, but I can't think of a character that has an actual ranged weapon attack. So yeah, this could be a first, or at least a rarity. Nope. It sounds like Prime dropped again. Unfortunately, I am pretty certain that he will be back. So that was his last story in his rundown of part 2. So I'll go ahead and go into our third segment for tonight. I found this one over on the PlayStation blog, actually. And it's V-Rally 4 is announced for PlayStation 4. Director details 21-year journey behind series' run. So this is part news, but also part interview with the CEO of the development studio. So there is actually a V-Rally 4 announcement trailer that's up and available on YouTube. I'm not a super huge fan of this title or franchise. I'm not even sure I played it, but I am a big, huge rally racing fan and a racing fan in general. One of the things I've been playing this week has been Dirt 3, which I think is a 2008 or a 2011 game, but it's still tons of fun to play just because rally is fun to play. So I believe his name is Alain Jarnieu. He's French. I believe the studio is French. And he apparently was a fan of the game when he was a gamer more so than a game developer. So he played it 21 years ago. He was 16 years old, and now he's heading up the studio that is bringing it back. So it's actually one of the things that encouraged him to get into programming. I'm just happy that there's a new rally game coming to the PlayStation 4 platform, and that it's not necessarily. I mean, I love all the franchises that are out there that do this, but it's not Gran Turismo DLC plug-in or the next iteration of Dirt. So we should have both this game and the next version of Dirt, because Dirt, I think Dirt Rally and Dirt Racing 4 launched within maybe not 12 months, but I want to say like 15 months of each other. So it should be interesting. This guy is really passionate about the title. He remembers playing it as a kid, so I was more interested in the news that it's coming and it's on its way. Although I'm not seeing a specific release date just yet. But it's good. More racing. It's always good. So from that story, we will go over to another racing story. I didn't even realize this was not on purpose. I didn't even, because I put my news stories together over a couple days, 2 or 3 days of prepping for the podcast, kind of a little onesie-twosie, and I didn't realize that it was kind of a whole racing night to a certain extent. So the Crew 2, this does have a release date, will be released on June 29th. So this is your Independence Day game. I love that this is happening in the industry and that it's getting back to this notion of there are things being sprinkled throughout the year. And I don't know if it's intentional, but in general, this stuff also tends to line up with releases just prior to U.S. holidays, which is, I apologize for being, a little bit Americanist, but it's what drives my holiday schedule, so that's what interests me. Typically, there's when the industry is back on this cycle. There's typically a spring break game, which typically comes out in March. Then there's another big AAA game before Memorial Day, and some more AAA releases before Independence Day, and then another few right before Labor Day as kids are going back to school to give them a nice big AAA game to take back with them to distract them when they should be studying. It definitely distracted me when I was a kid. So the Crew 2 drops on June 29th. It's being done by Ubisoft Ivory Tower. Also based out of France, a lot of racing stuff coming out of France. A big boost to the graphics engine is apparently part of what they have planned. There is a new gameplay trailer up for that as well. They're going to divide things into 4 car classes this time: street racing, off-road, pro racing, and freestyle. I'm not sure exactly what freestyle would be. I hope it's not a lot of drift, because I don't mind a few drift events, but I hate them when they're critical path or a game's overburdened with them. There are going to be bikes, boats, and planes this time, so I feel like that kind of redefines what the Crew is as a franchise. It makes it a little different, but they haven't really talked about that a lot. There's going to be solo play and co-op play, as well as PvE, head-to-head competition between racers and teams. So driving across the U.S., apparently they're not going to make... I'm not essentially sure what the Wild Run mode was, but I read earlier today that there was some angst that didn't release as part of the core of the original game. But it sounds like they're releasing all of the game modes and types of stuff that they had from the first game after all the DLC was there, and that's going to be available in the second iteration right off the bat. So, Prime, I don't know if you're interested in all that racing stuff, but one thing that would be great about racing games is if you could play with friends on other platforms, but that's not the case. But are there games that are trying to make that happen? Are there other studios trying to make that happen?
Yes, actually, there are. So Fortnite, our friends at Epic Games are bringing Fortnite to not only cross-play, but cross-progression and cross-purchase. So I'm assuming you'll be able to play it on anything, from what I guess. They don't really go into detail on that part, but so you'll be able to do this between Xbox, PC, Mac, PS4, and a couple other systems here I'll get to in a second. But they do say here, as far as PS4 is just going to be compatible or crossplay with PC. There hasn't been any talk of Xbox and PS4 crossplay, even though I know when Fortnite first came out, like those first, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, I got accidentally turned on. So, people on Sony and Microsoft sides were able to play against each other. So, and it was pretty much quickly turned off, I think. I don't know, within a few hours, I guess, or maybe even sooner than that. So, yeah, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I know Xbox and even PS4. There's a lot of times they're cross play on PC, but you'll be able to do it between Macs and 2 other systems here. Now that I'm gonna talk about iOS and Android. Yes, you heard that right. Fortnite is coming to mobile. So they have released a beta on the iOS system right now. Actually, I think it was yesterday it started. You can start signing up, and I'm assuming you just get an invite and jump right in. And then an Android will be coming up here, and he said within a few months, I think, or through a few weeks, probably a few weeks. I don't see it being that long. So yeah, you'll be able to play Fortnite along with a couple other games I'm talk about here in a second. But that's pretty. I don't know. That's pretty interesting. A game that big and they're going to put it, on such a small platform, a small size, screen size, I guess you want to say. I guess you can, play it on tablets too. But I don't know. I know you're not. I don't know if you're big into the battle royale type games, but I mean, what did you think about this announcement coming out?
I find it interesting and very ambitious. Part of me feels like unnecessarily so. Like I don't know that this is a thing to go after that makes any reasonable gameplay gamer oriented sense. Other than simply to prove the science of being able to do it, right? So it's a little bit of a machismo thing, I feel like. Like I don't, it's difficult for me to imagine a use case where I would feel and come away with feeling like it was a rewarding gaming experience for me to be playing something like Fortnite with my friends who are on their PlayStation 4 and their Xbox while I'm stuck on an iPad. Right, like maybe if they were like my best friends of all life, and I gamed with them like every weekend, and it was a weekend where I was away with my family, and the only way for us to get together would be to play. But like that's such a niche use case, right? And it was the ambition of the Division, and the Division dropped it, right, because it was too hard. I mean, Ubisoft dropped it because it was too hard. Remember, all the trailers leading up to the launch of the Division, there was this whole the long lead trailers. There was this whole plan for you to be able to fly drones and assist your friends from your iPad. I will say I know the makeup, the personnel makeup of Epic. They are much more in the realm of the computer engineering and science behind making games. So they have lots of employees who just work on frameworks and engines and physics. So I'm sure that they have some high-powered people working on netcode. And if there's a studio / publisher that can make it happen, it's probably Epic. So it'll be interesting to see it progress.
Yeah, and I can see it something like the Ubisoft game would make more sense, because if you're just flying a drone, I mean that's fine. But you actually, excuse me, you're actually gonna be playing against PS4 and PC people here, who obviously are going to have a huge advantage over an iOS or Android system. So controls. I mean, maybe you can have like a a little controller, but still, it's not going to be the same.
Right, and you can make that happen, but it's hard, right? I mean, if we remember, like this was one of my big things, right? That I was trying to push the boundaries on what could you get into in mobile gaming. That was a strong part of my YouTube channel and my live streams. It got lots of hits, and despite the uptake of views on my channel, I walked away from it because it was just too difficult, and it was taking away from other gaming. Like you have to find controllers that are compatible. That's always a chore to find good ones. Yeah. And particularly with Android, every time the operating system moves, controllers that were compatible wind up dropping out of that population, right? So there's this goofy thing of where lots of controllers have to have an app to make them work with the operating system. Like my feeling is like if they want this to work with iOS and they want this to work on Android, both of those operating systems need the equivalent of the direct input component. It's all one word, typically camel case, right? Direct input. That is the framework that is part of DirectX. That is the API that manages controller input and makes that universal and levels the playing field for everybody trying to interface with it. And iOS and Android need robust components of similar ilk so that everybody can just plug into that API instead of having to spool their own app to work with the OS. But yeah, if they had that, this would be much more viable, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's cool. It's just a cool like technical thing, I guess, that they're that they're doing with all this. But so you had mentioned, why would they do this? In the next game I'm going to talk about here is Ark Survival Evolved. It's going to also come to mobile, which is an MMO, a pretty massive, big MMO on PC and consoles. It's on Xbox. I'm not sure if it's on PS4 yet or if it ever came out. I think it did. But that's going to be coming to mobile. I don't think that's cross-play, at least as far as the article I got here from Destructoid. But it's from the company that did, I guess there was a Bully mobile port, the Rockstar game Bully. I'm assuming that's the one they're talking about. Wardrobe Studios. They're gonna port it over to mobile. And Ark is this, like I said, it's an MMO, so there's just these big maps where you can roam around, and I've talked about it before on Xbox. You can roam around, you can build up a base, and they even show it in the little teaser trailer. They show this huge base being built up, and it's just like, oh, that's pretty amazing. The graphics look pretty good. I mean, for a mobile game. So this one kind of, I don't know if this one might boggle my mind a little bit more than Fortnite and PUBG, which is also going to come into mobile and is on mobile. Actually, I think it's released a couple weeks ago in China.
Hasn't ARK struggled to be popular and retain players even on like the core platforms?
Yeah, I know when it first came out on early access on the PC, it was gangbusters, and then it kind of slowly kind of just faded away. And I think the same thing on Xbox. Some people still play it, but I don't think it's nearly what it used to be. So, but it's just interesting that they'd have something like that. That one maybe makes a little bit more sense. Well, I don't say a little bit more sense, but if you're able to play, with other systems, that would make more sense because you're just base building and roaming around. There's some battling, but it's it's not the mechanics are not nearly as I don't want to say sophisticated. I guess sophisticated as say like PUBG or something like that or Fortnite. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that they're gonna bring it to iOS and Android. Once again, iOS there's a beta that you can sign up for, and then it'll come to Android eventually. But yeah, so a bunch of mobile games, and like I just said, PUBG is coming. It was in China. It released in China 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then now there's a beta in Canada. So I'm assuming there'll be one soon here in the U.S. Even though this is once again iOS and Android, but Android there's some ways that you can load it onto your system. So if you just search on the internet, you can find that, and it's a free game, so it's free to play. Excuse me, on the PC. So yeah, we got these major games coming out on mobile. I don't know. I just thought that was just like, I don't know, just weird, I guess, just because these are not just the type of games you would think that they'd port over. So I don't know. All right. So finally, if you don't have any other comments.
Yeah, no. I guess my only one other comment is it's kind of funny, right? Because to me the comeuppance of the Switch is when the Switch landed and it became successful. One of the things I berated like Android and iOS, Apple for its iOS devices, and who had a strong framework to support games and tons of developer interest to support higher fidelity games, and Android, who had lots of manufacturers behind it. All of them had the ability to do the Switch, right? They could have entirely done a device like the Switch because the Switch is just a SKU of an Android device, and they all chose not to. They could have had robust controller support. They could have had all this stuff. So I find it interesting, and I wonder if that's what's driving game developers to go, hey, you can actually like implement this on a mobile device, right? And then it gives you other opportunities. So I wonder if this is all coming to bear because of the wonder that has become the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah. Well, yeah, actually, that's one thing I was going to mention was hopefully, because they have these games now on mobile sites that maybe or mobile systems that they'll port it over to Switch. I know Fortnite was kind of rumored, and even like the I don't know if it was the Epic CEO or somebody from Epic, like a higher up, was mentioning that they'd like to, they're looking into it and would like to do it. So that'd be cool to get at least Fortnite, if not PUBG on there. It'd be really cool. Do you want to bring us home with the last segment here for this day in game?
Yeah, and I'll try and get through this quickly since we're running a little bit over. So this is a segment that I hope to do, regardless of whether it's the core show or the news show. So it may float around, but we've done this a couple times in other iterations of the show. I always love it, and I chastised myself earlier this week for getting away from it. So I'm trying to insert it back, at least on shows when I'm on. So 1991. I don't know where everybody else was. I will date myself a little and say I was wrapping up my freshman year of college, and obviously later in the year, just getting started on my sophomore year of college. I was at a place where I really wasn't allowed to play games, just the way the structure worked. In my sophomore year, I would have had more time, and I definitely went gangbusters. I had gotten a hold of like Joe Montana, but the games that I played on our like X486 systems, or 486 PCs, were basically games where you had to dump out of Windows and punch into DOS, and then start the game. It was just after games like King's Quest and Space Quest, and that generation of games were starting, and Scorched Earth was a big thing that year. So it's 1991. So just want to talk a little bit. There's not an exact date that anything big happened. So what I'm going to do for this segment, this episode, is just talk about things that would have happened so far that year up to this point in 1991. And maybe some things about the year in general, because one of these actually happens later this year. So Road Rash, the first iteration of Road Rash for home consoles, was released in 1991 for the Sega Genesis. It was one of the things that differentiated the Genesis from the Nintendo Entertainment System, because I don't know if I would go so far as to say it was an exclusive, but it launched on the Sega Genesis. So that was pretty cool. It obviously spawned a popular game that everybody loved. Lots of people loved to play at home. I didn't know this, but SSI TSR, which was TSR, was the old game shop, meaning tabletop pen and paper game shop that owned Dungeons and Dragons before I guess they went away, and then it was later picked up by Wizards of the Coast. And Stormfront Studios released Neverwinter Nights, which I thought that the modern Neverwinter Nights that I played, Neverwinter Nights and Neverwinter Nights 2, that were driven on like the same engines, or the descendants of like the Baldur's Gate engine and Icewind Dale and all that stuff. But they actually released the Neverwinter Nights back in 1991, which was credited as the first Morpig. I didn't do a ton of research on that, so I'll have to go back and check that out. A big game on the Amiga was released by Delphine Software called Another World. I never owned an Amiga, so I don't really know why that's a big deal, but it was driven by polygons instead of sprites. Now, the stuff that we actually have dates for, February 14th, DMA Design released the first version of Lemmings. So that's a big year in gaming history, right? That Lemmings, to me, was one of those first games that brought people in to play it that weren't what would later go on to be called gamers, right, or core gamers. This was kind of like a Nintendo Wii-like game released in 1991 that I would see all sorts of people playing who were not interested in video games. So, and it obviously spawns a lot of metaphors and analogies that we throw around in common verbiage to this day. Perhaps even bigger, on February 6th, earlier that month, Capcom released Street Fighter II to the arcades. Now, if you were an arcade gamer from like the 80s, you would know that through the core of the 80s, arcades were big, and then about 5 years after the big console market drought that occurred, that we talked about a couple episodes ago on the Core Show, happened, that kind of blight swung over and hit the arcades as well. In the late 80s, arcades kind of fell out of preeminence as a place to gather and play games, and where hot games were constantly showing up. Street Fighter II landed early in 1991 and kind of reinvigorated that industry, and really got started back this whole notion of people physically showing up in arcades to have local tournaments and competitions, and you would actually physically show up and watch your local heroes fight it out for top cred in the arcade. So those were the big things that would have happened so far through mid-March in 1991. Lots of games which still to this day have an impact on us as gamers, and spawned a lot of famous games that now you hear people who have been around the games industry a lot say were definitely core games that they played and may have formed their opinion and how they feel and see the games industry today. I don't know. Did you play any of those Prime, or were you even into gaming back in 1991 yet?
Yeah, I played Street Fighter II and Road Rash, which is actually, I was just listening to a podcast where they were mentioning Road Rash, and there's like a spiritual successor game that just came out not too long ago, which I guess is pretty crappy, but unfortunately. But yeah, right. I really miss Road Rash. I remember actually playing it not only on the Sega Genesis at that time, but later on I think it was the N64 or something like that. So, yeah. But yeah, there's some cool stuff there.
So I actually didn't play any of these games specifically, but I will say I can remember, coming up through high school, arcades being a big deal, and then just not going to arcades because consoles came back. But I can remember going home on vacation over the summers and the consoles being on the rise, the arcades being on the rise again, and going to the arcade and seeing people overplaying Street Fighter II, which I didn't play, but I would see the big crowds gathered around them. But also bringing people in to play games that I did play, and like Capcom also having like a Marvel versus Capcom, or the X-Men. I think maybe Marvel versus Capcom hadn't started, but I remember like the X-Men console being in during that time, and whatever that robotic like cyber football thing was also big. So yeah, I can remember my local arcades, some of which went out of business right during that time period, like. But the ones that had survived resurging during that time period. So
yeah, I didn't see I didn't see Mortal Kombat on here at all, and I thought that came out fairly
in '91.
Yeah, within like Street Fighter's, release, but maybe it was like the next year or something.
So we haven't talked about it, but there was another big console release this year, 1991, that had Mortal Kombat on it. So maybe it was maybe it got released at the tail end.
Maybe, yeah.
Of the year, I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool to go back and see like stuff releasing, and yeah, like about Neverwinter Nights. I never realized it was that far back. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool. All right, so
that's it for me. If you want to go ahead and get us out of here.
Yes, let's wrap this up. This is episode number 34 of E2KGn30. Please come back on Tuesday, where we'll be doing our Enough to Keep Going core show, where we're going to be doing a quarterly kind of review of the last 3 months on gaming, basically. So, and I believe all of us will be here, and maybe a special guest. We'll see. I haven't heard yes or no on that one yet. And then come back next Thursday, hopefully Thursday, for Enough to Keep Going, or I'm sorry, E2KGn30, episode number 35. So on behalf of myself, Osiris Prime, and the guest, Stamos, we will see you next time.